Hi, I'm Robert Horton. I'm a member of the National Society of Film Critics and the programmer historian in residence at Scarecrow Video. In 2022, I am again leading Scarecrow Academy, an online discussion group presented by the nonprofit Scarecrow Video in Seattle. Our series is called The Art in Sci Fi, Science Fiction and the Director. We look at 10 classics of the science fiction film, discussing them with an emphasis on how the art of directing manifests itself on screen. You don't have to have attended any of our previous sessions to join us at any time. The series is free, takes place via Zoom on Saturday afternoons at 2 p.m. Pacific time. You can go to the Scarecrow Academy page if that's not where you are already, find the link and send it to Scarecrow and you will get an invitation to join us on Saturday. Our semester continues Saturday, April 23rd with a conversation about John Carpenter's 1988 film, They Live. Let us now introduce this director and this film. John Carpenter was born in 1948, raised mostly in Kentucky. His father was a professor of music in Kentucky, and as you probably know, John Carpenter composes music that is a significant element of his films. Just try getting the theme from Halloween out of your mind once you've thought of it. Carpenter went to USC Film School, collaborated with some friends on a short film that actually won the Best Short Oscar in 1970, and then managed to get a student film expanded into a feature-length theatrical release, which was Dark Star, released in 1974. Another science fiction title. Carpenter always had a distinctive vision and visual style, which he proved with two features that followed. Assault on Precinct 13, a taut crime picture that works as an homage to the cinema of Howard Hawks, one of Carpenter's favorite directors. And in 1978, Halloween, a horror film that became a phenomenal success, especially considering its budget. The decade that followed the success of Halloween was Carpenter's busiest, I think you can say, including some very inventive genre films like The Thing and Escape from New York. He made a TV movie, Elvis, that got huge ratings and also started Carpenter's collaboration with Kurt Russell, and also the sci-fi romance Starman. The last 20 years or so have seen Carpenter turn away from feature filmmaking for whatever reasons. He's made only one feature since 2001 and the movie Ghosts of Mars, a film I happen to like quite a bit, although he has been producing various performance things with his music in recent years. They Live was released in 1988. That's the final full year of Ronald Reagan's presidency, and this is relevant to what the film is about, although it has its roots in a short story published in 1963, 8 O'Clock in the Morning by Ray Faraday Nelson. Very, very short story that Carpenter expanded on greatly for the movie, although it does contain the basics of what the movie's about. They Live is about a drifter whose name is never mentioned, who is at first a guy who says he believes in America, believes that if you work hard, you'll get a fair shake, and the rest of the movie is basically constructed to show him how naive he is, as he discovers that the world is actually run by an kind of invisible or at least hidden cabal of aliens who are lulling the population to obey and remain docile through a series of subliminal messages and various distractions. The satire is broad and gleeful and accurate, not only on target for the yuppies that Carpenter so disdained back in the 1980s, but also a useful prediction of the phenomenon to come, like entire populations voting against their own interests, for instance, or the brainwashing of viewers by means of politicized media. We might note in passing that the fairness doctrine in the U.S., if you don't know what that is, look it up, it's very interesting, was abolished in 1987, the year before this movie came out, a development that was to have a much more seismic effect on public discourse than anyone could have predicted, although I suspect a few people probably could have predicted that. One thing I think is extremely important to remember about They Live is that it is deliberately pitched as a B-movie. Although Carpenter's visual style is frequently elegant, as in the sequence in which our hero first puts on the sunglasses that will allow him to see the world as it really is. The spirit of the thing is pulp fiction. I think this is why the political satire works so well, actually. A glossier, bigger budgeted picture might come off as sort of hectoring or smug, But the scrappy characters here and the punchy dialogue creates kind of a lowbrow approach to satire that is quite effective. For instance, Carpenter casts a professional wrestler, Roddy Piper, in the lead role. And while Piper is clearly not the actor that a more professional or accomplished performer like Kurt Russell would be, the movie is somehow cooler and funkier because of his presence. They Live doesn't preach, even though it does contain a preacher. It kicks stuff around and lets you laugh your way through the graveyard. The fact of Carpenter being a careful visual stylist is not just the cherry on top of all this, it's actually part of the film's meaning. This is a movie about looking hard and seeing the truth, even from the opening credits where the words "they live" sort of emerge from a wall of graffiti that we're looking at. This is a film where looking carefully and noticing things will be rewarded, as opposed to sleepwalking your way through life. In fact, one of the film's running gags that has remained evergreen is how easily people can be swayed with sentimental propaganda. They Live contains parodies of the famous Morning in America ad campaign of the Reagan candidacy, and they are certainly laugh out loud funny, or they would be if you didn't know that half the population takes them at face value and absolutely loves their emotional porn. You get the feeling that Carpenter's revulsion to this is also an aesthetic one, as his style tends toward the wry and the deadpan. We'll pay proper homage to the hero's revelation sequence, a masterpiece sequence that the novelist Jonathan Lethem, who wrote a book-length study of this film, called 10 Minutes of Cognitive Dissonance, as sublime as anything in the history of paranoid cinema, shot partly in black and white and composed with the serene assurance of Hitchcock or Kubrick. I think that's fair to say. And we'll also mention another one of the film's set pieces, ludicrously overextended hand-to-hand fight scene between Roddy Piper and Keith David, which not only serves as a kind of coded expression of love between two men, but also works as a measure of how difficult it is to get people to see the truth, or even to want to see the truth, since the whole fight is about Piper trying to convince David to put on the sunglasses so that he'll see the world as it really is. That's the essence of They Live. Within its absurdities, ideas wait to be discovered. We'll talk about these things and more when we gather on Saturday, April 23rd, to put on our sunglasses and discuss John Carpenter's 1988 film, They Live.